Hello. Didn't see you there. How's it going today? I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're reacting to some more Kurzgesagt. Today, we're going to be watching their video on loneliness. Loneliness sucks. Be kind to people. Be a friend. Don't let people be lonely. It sucks to be lonely. Although sometimes we're lonely, even surrounded by our friends. And I think that's what this video might be talking about. Let's dive right in.
Everybody feels lonely from time to time.
Yeah, we do.
When we have no one to sit next to at lunch, when we move to a new city, or when nobody has time for us at the weekend.
We are social creatures.
But over the last few decades, this occasional feeling has become chronic for millions. In the UK, 60% of 18 to 34-year-olds say they often feel lonely.
Why is that?
In the US, 46% of the entire population feel lonely regularly.
I have a quick theory before they explain it, as I'm sure they will. I think loneliness is increased due to technology. With the technology that we have, I mean, even back, 100, 150 years ago, 100 years ago? Something like that. The telephone was invented. I mean, suddenly you went from your interactions being face-to-face, having to walk to your neighbor's house to chat with them, having to go into town to see people, to chat with them at the store or whatever. And we went from that to, hello, hey, gotcha. That doesn't quite replace a face-to-face conversation. There's something lacking there. And it is very good for quick socialization, but it's hard to build and maintain sort of like those deep bonds over a telephone call. And then that's just evolved. Now we got the internet and all its craziness.
We are living in the most connected time in human history. And yet, an unprecedented number of us feel isolated.
Yeah, everyone's on their phone all the time.
And being alone are not the same thing. You can be filled with bliss by yourself and hate every second surrounded by friends.
Yep.
Loneliness is a purely subjective, individual experience. If you feel lonely, you are lonely.
And it just,
a common
right here.
stereotype is that loneliness only happens to people who don't know how to talk to people or how to behave around others. But population-based studies have shown that social skills make practically no difference for adults when it comes to social connections. Loneliness can affect everybody.
Yep.
Money, fame, power, beauty, social skills, a great personality. Nothing can protect you against loneliness because it's part of your biology.
It's not about having connections. It's about not having meaningful connections or the connections that you need right then.
Function like hunger. Hunger makes you pay attention to your physical needs. Loneliness makes you pay attention to your social needs. Your body cares about your social needs because millions of years ago it was a great indicator of how likely you were to survive.
It's a good point.
Natural selection rewarded our ancestors for collaboration and for forming connections with each other. Our brains grew and became more and more fine-tuned to recognize what others thought and felt and to form and sustain social bonds.
We have to build societies and maintain them.
Part of our biology. You were born into groups of 50 to 150 people, which you usually stayed with for the rest of your life. Getting enough calories, staying safe and warm, or caring for offspring was practically impossible alone. Being together meant survival. Being alone meant death. So it was crucial that you got along with others.
It's true.
For your ancestors, the most dangerous threat to survival was not being eaten by a lion, but not getting the social vibe of your group and being excluded. To avoid that,
and then being eaten by a lion.
With social pain. Pain of this kind is an evolutionary adaptation to rejection. A sort of early warning system to make sure you stop behavior that would isolate you. Your ancestors who experienced rejection as more painful were more likely to change their behavior when they got rejected and thus stayed in the tribe, while those who did not got kicked out and most likely died. That's why rejections hurt, and even more so, why loneliness is so painful. These mechanisms for keeping us connected worked great for most of our history until humans began building a new world for themselves.
Yeah. Kind of changed everything really quickly there.
The loneliness epidemic we see today really only started in the late Renaissance. Western culture began to focus on the individual. Intellectuals moved away from the collectivism of the Middle Ages, while the young Protestant theology stressed individual responsibility. This trend accelerated during the Industrial Revolution. People left their villages and fields to enter factories.
Yeah, everything changed then,
that had
too.
existed for hundreds of years began to dissolve, while cities grew. As our world rapidly became modern, this trend sped up more and more. Today, we move vast distances for new jobs, love and education, and leave our social net behind. We meet fewer people in person, and we meet them less often than in the past.
And we can't have meaningful
in the US,
connections
the mean
with all
number
of them.
Close friends dropped from 3 in 1985 to 2 in 2011. Most people stumble into chronic loneliness by accident. You reach adulthood and become busy with work, university, romance, kids, and Netflix.
We're all so busy with everything.
There's just not enough
There's no time.
The most convenient and easy thing to sacrifice is time with friends. Until you wake up one day and realize that you feel isolated. That you yearn for close relationships. But it's hard to find close connections as adults, and so loneliness can become chronic.
Yeah.
While humans feel pretty great about things like iPhones and spaceships, our bodies and minds are fundamentally the same they were 50,000 years ago. We are still biologically fine-tuned to being with each other.
50,000 years is nothing on an evolutionary scale. We're pretty much the same.
Large-scale studies have shown that the stress that comes from chronic loneliness is among the most unhealthy things we can experience as humans.
Oh, wow.
It makes you age quicker. It makes cancer deadlier, Alzheimer's advance faster, your immune system's weaker.
That's
Loneliness
crazy.
is twice as deadly as obesity and as deadly as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
Come on, I'm fat and lonely.
The most dangerous thing about it is that once it becomes chronic, it can become self-sustaining.
That's very
Physical
true.
and social pain use common mechanisms in your brain. Both feel like a threat, and so social pain leads to immediate and defensive behavior when it's inflicted on you. When loneliness becomes chronic, your brain goes into self-preservation mode.
Yep, which
It
hurts
starts
you
to
more.
see danger and hostility everywhere. But that's not all. Some studies found that when you're lonely, your brain is much more receptive and alert to social signals, while at the same time, it gets worse at interpreting them correctly. You pay more attention to others, but you understand them less. The part of your brain that recognizes faces gets out of tune and becomes more likely to categorize neutral faces as hostile, which makes it distrustful of others.
Yeah, okay.
Loneliness
That makes
makes
sense.
you assume the worst about others' intentions towards you. Because of this perceived hostile world, you can become more self-centered to protect yourself,
Yeah.
which can
Oh,
make
God,
you appear
that's too
more
real.
cold,
This is too real,
unfriendly,
guys.
and socially awkward than you really are.
Spend less time on our
If
phones.
loneliness has become a strong presence in your life, the first thing you can do is to try to recognize the vicious cycle you may be trapped in. It usually goes something like this. An initial feeling of isolation leads to feelings of tension and sadness, which makes you focus your attention selectively on negative interactions with others. This makes your thoughts about yourself and others more negative,
Am I getting
which
therapy
then
live
changes
on
your
air?
behavior. You begin to avoid social interaction, which leads to more feelings of isolation. This cycle becomes more severe and harder to escape each time. Loneliness makes you sit far away from others in class.
Well, and that's the conundrum, is as you get deeper and deeper into loneliness, especially if you're an introverted person, I feel like the path to loneliness is a little easier or a little shorter than extroverts. I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert, so I only have the one perspective. Maybe that's not true. Maybe it's the opposite, or maybe they're equal. But as you start to become lonely and you feel the lack of that meaningful connection with someone else or meaningful connections with someone else, and there's different types of them, you know, you got your romantic connections, you have your like sad, comforting connections, you have your I need fun and entertainment connections, your cry on a shoulder connections, all sorts of them. It's not just a simple get together. But if you're feeling a lack of any of those connections, the worse it gets, the more and more you want to avoid having less meaningful connections because it's painful for you. At least I'm speaking from my experience in the matter. I'm fine now, guys. But I wasn't all that fine some of my life. And you kind of push people away and avoid situations that are social because you don't want to go through that. And that's sad because that's prolonging and making the loneliness problem worse. And you start digging a ditch that's harder and harder to get out of. It really is.
Not answer the phone when friends call, decline invitations until the invitations stop. Each and every one of us has a story about ourselves, and if your story becomes that people exclude you, others pick up on that.
We all deserve that one friend that, even though you never go, always invites you. And one day, you'll say yes, right? It will happen. And I was lucky enough to actually have a couple friends like that, where they always invited me, they always reached out. And even though the answer was no, 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 for years, they always invited me. And one day the answer was yes. And honestly, I'm so grateful to have those people in my life. And everyone deserves somebody like that. So if you don't have someone like that, or you're not one of the people that's lonely, or maybe even if you are, maybe try and be that person for somebody, because we could always use another friend like that.
And so the outside world can become the way you feel about it. This is often a slow creeping process that takes years and can end in depression and a mental state that prevents connections even if you yearn for them.
Yeah.
The first thing you can do to escape it is to accept that loneliness is a totally normal feeling and nothing to be ashamed of. Literally everybody feels lonely at some point in their life. It's a universal human experience. You can't eliminate or ignore a feeling until it goes away magically, but you can accept that you feel it and get rid of its cause. You can self-examine what you focus your attention on and check if you are selectively concentrating on negative things. Was this interaction with a colleague really negative?
I had actually found that for a while there, I was always assuming ill intent. I took a really good look at myself and realized that I was putting malicious intent into people that weren't actually having any malicious intent. And in my mind, I was kind of making up or misinterpreting a lot of that. And it took me a bit to realize that, and it also took some outside help through some people that were close to me. But once I kind of realized that and I started paying a little bit more attention and being a little open-minded and going into interactions, even though I was thinking that some people might have been a bit malicious, I would respond as if that wasn't the case. And I found that way more often than not, it wasn't malicious. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't a negative response. That was me interpreting it that way. And so after a while, you kind of have to start building that habit of, I'm going to act as if you're not doing this on purpose. I'm going to act as if you're not out to hurt me, out to get me. And the outcome will probably be better because of it.
Or was it really neutral or even positive? What was the actual content of an interaction? What did the other person say?
This is hitting
And did they say
way
something
too close
bad,
to home.
Or did you add extra meaning to their words? Maybe another person was not really reacting negatively, but just short on time. Then there are your thoughts about the
Everyone
world.
has their own
Are you
story.
assuming the worst about others' intentions? Do you enter a social situation and have already decided how it will go? Do you assume others don't want you around? Are you trying to avoid being hurt and not risking opening up? And if so, can you try to give others the benefit of the doubt? Can you just assume that they're not against you? Can you risk being open and vulnerable again? And lastly, your behavior. Are you avoiding opportunities to be around others? Are you looking for excuses to decline invitations? Or are you pushing others away preemptively to protect yourself? Are you acting as if you're getting attacked? Are you really looking for new connections?
Guys.
Or have you become complacent?
This is
with
a
your
little too real
situation?
for me.
Of course, every person and situation is unique and different, and just introspection alone
Absolutely.
might not be enough.
We're all
If you
unique.
feel unable to solve your situation by yourself, please try to reach out and get professional help. It's not a sign of weakness, but of courage. However, we look at
Absolutely.
loneliness as a purely individual problem that needs solving to create more personal happiness, or as a public health crisis, it is something that deserves more attention.
Yeah.
Humans have built a world that's nothing short of amazing, and yet none of the shiny things we've made is able to satisfy or substitute our fundamental biological need for connection. Most animals get what they need from their physical surroundings. We get what we need from each other. And we need to build our artificial human world based on that.
Yeah. Well, it's not a weakness. It's not a bug. It's a feature.
Let's-
100%. If we didn't have that social need and that drive to feel included and wanted, we would not have the crazy societies that we do today. I think that's just a fact. Society would not exist. And without society, we would not be anywhere near where we are today in terms of technology, in terms of survivability and growth. We just wouldn't. I mean, it's just a fact in my mind. So it's not a weakness.
Let's try something together. Let's reach out to someone today. Regardless if you feel a little bit lonely or if you want to make someone else's day better. Maybe write a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Call a family member who's become estranged. Invite a work buddy for a coffee. Or just go to something you're usually too afraid to go to or too lazy to go to, like a D&D event or a sports club.
Yeah, D&D. That's fun. Well, I love D&D. It's been forever, and it's only been a handful of times, but it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed when we played that, for sure. But when it comes to messaging other people or calling other people or going out to other things, a lot of us seem to get in the habit of saying, well, it's a two-way street. They could always reach out to me. Well, yeah, it is a two-way street, so it's as much on you as it is on the other person. And a lot of times, they might have the same reasonings that you do, or very similar reasonings as to why they're not reaching out. It's not that they don't like you. It's not that they don't want to talk to you. It's not that they don't value your friendship and their relationship with you. It's that they're busy. They got a lot going on with work, with school, with children, with hobbies. They got a lot going on too. And at the end of the day, when they get home, they're tired and they go to sleep. Or whatever the case may be. And oftentimes, if you can just kind of get over that and send that first initial message or reach out that first time, whatever your preferred method is, whether that's instant messenger, a text message, a phone call, an in-person visit, however that is, oftentimes that other person is delighted to hear from you. So don't fall into that trap of saying it's a two-way street. They could call me too. Well, yeah, you could also call them.
Everybody's different, so you know what's a good fit for you. Maybe nothing will come of it, and that's okay. Don't do this with any expectations. The goal is just to open up a bit.
Yeah.
To exercise your connection muscles so they can grow stronger over time. Or to help others exercise them. We want to recommend 2 of the books we read while researching this video.
If you are struggling in any way with mental health, whether that's depression, whether you're having bad thoughts, whether you just need help understanding what's going on in your head, don't hesitate. Reach out. Therapy is not a bad thing. Therapy is not a sign of weakness. We all need help sometimes. And sometimes the real strength comes from admitting that we need that help and seeking it out. So please, if you are in a rough spot and you don't have a good support structure, please reach out. Contact a professional. It's very hard to do, but sometimes it is the strongest thing you can do. Know that someone out there loves you. Someone out there cares about you very deeply. You might not be thinking of it right now, but someone does. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you have yourself a wonderful day.